Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today we are reading pages 63 to 80, but more importantly, we're reading our new section of the book, Jump for Tickets. The last section, I thought it was kind of good. Maybe I didn't, I don't know, it's been a minute since I've last recorded. It's been a whole thing. I've been busy with life and all that fun, and just haven't had a good moment to just sit back and read. Now, I do. With a new look on coffee and a better look on life. That's not to say before I didn't have a good look on life. That's just to say I now drink coffee, which has been messing with my throat as of late. So I lowered it to 1 cup of coffee a week. It's apparently good for the skin. Anywho, without further ado, and probably with a lot of voice cracks, let's begin. Jump for Tickets. The little kid's grating voice blared through Colton's headphones, as high-pitched and annoying as a smoke alarm. "Did you just kill me? That was harsh, dude." "I was just merely killing, squeaker," Colton said, emphasizing the new deepness of his voice. He was going through a tough and sarcastic tone, like an action hero. "Too bad you can't respawn." Colton hated the little kids who tried to play Hammer of Odin, his favorite online role-playing game. The little brats dominated the chat function, trying and failing to make more mature players think they were cool. Hammer of Odin wasn't appropriate for little kids anyway. It was rated T, so it was for teens like Colton. The little pipsqueak should stick to playing Block Builder like Colton had played last year when he was still in middle school. When Colton had looked back at middle school, he didn't even recognize the person he had been. For one thing, his dad was still alive. Colton had been a happy, carefree, regular kid, not worried about anything more serious than how long it would take him to save up his generous allowance for a new video game. But on an icy road just over a year ago, the accident happened and everything had changed. Life had changed. Colton had changed. Colton couldn't get over the unfairness of the accident. His dad had been relatively young and took care of himself, but none of that mattered because of the stupid patch of ice and a strip of road without a guardrail. When it first happened, Colton had kept all his sadness inside. He hadn't cried, not even at the funeral. But over time, his sadness had hardened into anger. How could a person not be angry living in a world where good people died for no reason? Colton knew that his mom and some of his teachers were worried about how cold and bitter he had seemed. What was he supposed to do? A happy dance? His dad was dead, and he lived in a world where people rarely got what they deserved. If he lashed out sometimes, so what? He was suffering, and if other people ended up getting a taste of that pain, then at least he didn't suffer alone. Colton jumped into surprise when a hand touched his shoulder. He looked up to see his mom, dressed in her light blue scrubs. Her curly brown hair was pulled back into a tight bun, like she always wore it when she was going to work. She gestured at him to remove his headset. He sighed with an expiration and reluctantly complied. "What?" His mom shook her head at him, though she was smiling. "I'm going to work as what? I'm pulling an 8 to 8 shift tonight. You haven't helped me. Here's a $10 bill if you want to go out and get a soda and play some games. That way at least one of us will be having fun." "Okay, thanks, Mom." A $10 bill was a once-a-week treat. Once a month, right after payday. She would give him a 20. "You got your key, right?" She put a lanyard she kept next to the door. Colton resisted the urge to roll his eyes. "Yes, Mom." Remember to lock the door if you go out," she said, grabbing her keys and purse. "And call the 3rd floor nurse's station if you need anything. One of the other nurses can come find me." "I will," Colton said, putting his headset back on to block out the barrage of nagging. After he'd got to a good stopping place on Hammer of Odin, he probably would head over to Fazbear's. The pizza place was less than 10-minute walk from their apartment building. He knew he would be really too old for Freddy's, and he had no interest in the creepy animatronics or the bland pizza. But some of the games were still fun, and there were lower tickets that would be redeemed for prizes. It took a ridiculous number of tickets to win anything good, of course. Most kids, especially the stupid little ones, cashed in their tickets at the end of their visit and walked away with the garbage like tiny plastic dinosaurs or a handful of cheap candy. But Colton, he wasn't so short-sighted like those little babies. He'd been saving up those tickets for a long time, months even, so he could cash them in for something really good. For the astronomical prize of 10,000 tickets, there was a new handheld game console he had his eye on, which was 2 models more up to date than the one he was currently playing. And that was the thing about living with just his mom. She had worked hard at her job as a licensed practitioner nurse in the hospital, but one income didn't go so far. With his dad gone, Colton and his mom had learned to settle for less. Living in a small apartment instead of a house, buying store-brand groceries instead of the brand-name stuff, playing older games on older equipment while Colton's friends seemed to buy the new games and consoles as casually as there were bottles of soda. He wasn't a poor kid exactly. They had a roof over their heads and clothes to wear and plenty to eat, but there was no money for what his mom always called luxuries. New name-brand clothes and sneakers were luxuries. So were new games and nearly anything else that would be a word new in front of it. Colton understood that his mom couldn't make money magically appear, but maybe if he spent enough time at Freddy's, he could make tickets magically appear. If he got good at the highest ticket-yielding games, he could win that game console. 10,000 tickets. He was going to do it. When he had told his mom the plan, she laughed and said, "Remind me to never take you to Las Vegas when you're old enough to gamble." But winning the tickets at Freddy's wasn't a Las Vegas-style luck. It was about skill, using your abilities to make a system work in your favor. Colton knew he had the skills. Colton signed out of Hammer of Odin, went to the kitchen and made himself a ham and cheese sandwich with pickles and mayo, which he gobbled standing over the sink. He was already eating dinner. But he always was hungry these days. It's like you have a hollow leg, his mom always said. He grabbed his jacket and shoved a $10 bill in his pocket. Time to win some tickets. It always took a few minutes to adjust to how overstimulating the environment of Freddy's was. Multicolored lights flashed, arcade games bleeped and blipped, and a band of creepy animatronic animals, led by top-hatted Freddy Fazbear, sang canned versions of kiddie tunes. And there were the kiddies themselves, laughing, screaming, throwing tantrums, and running around underfoot like cockroaches. It was all Colton could do not to squish them. Colton took a quick trip by the prize counter to make sure his dream console was still there. It was. There was still hope. He backtracked to the counter where tokens were sold. He laid down his tens and told the cashier, $10 in tokens, please. He wasn't going to waste any of his limited funds on soda. No reason for spending $1.99 that didn't move him any closer to his goal. If he got thirsty, he would drink from the water fountain. He went to play with regulars, DD's fishing hole and BB's ball drop, each of which yielded him a fairly long ribbon of tickets. The evening was so off to a promising start. Near the stage, a table full of rugrats, kindergartners from the looks of them, were munching pizza and wearing stupid-looking paper birthday hats decorated with cartoon characters. Their chubby, blank faces were smeared with pepperoni grease and tomato sauce. As he looked at them, Colton felt actual physical repulsion, as though he was surveying a nest of squirming maggots. And then, Colton saw him. One of the most horrible pizza-gobbling goblins and his little cousin, Aiden. Aiden was the most annoying little brat of all time, and because he was Colton's Aunt Katie's kid, the two of them were forced to spend time with each other. Presents, on holidays, birthdays, and whatever else his mom and aunt wanted to get together. The worst thing about Aiden is that he loved Colton desperately. No matter how much venom Colton spewed at him, Aiden only seemed to love him more. "Please don't let him see me. Please don't let him see me," Colton muttered under his breath. But it was too late. Aiden's gaze was already focused on Colton. He was smiling and waving frantically. The little boy dropped his pizza slice, got up from the table, and made a beeline for Colton. Before Colton could protest, Aiden was hugging him. Colton stood stiffly, his arms raised as though a police officer had told him to freeze. He refused to participate in the hug. Aiden finally let go. His smile had him favored. "Wow, I can't believe I get to go to a birthday party at Freddy's and I get to go see my cousin at the same time. This is the best night ever." "For one of us, maybe," Colton said. Aiden laughed. "You're funny, Colton. I better get back to the party. It's almost time for our favorite game. You know the one, right?" Aiden gave him a little chuck on the arm. Colton didn't know what game Aiden was talking about, but refused to acknowledge it. He rubbed his arm as Aiden was injured him. Thankfully, Aiden ran back to join his putrid pint-sized friends. "Now, who's ready to join? Ready to jump? 4 tickets!" A recorded voice as the animatronic Freddy flapped his jaws. The greasy little brats jumped up and down and cheered. Their high-pitched voices made Colton want to clap his hands over his ears. "Get ready for the ticket pulverizer countdown!" the recorded voice of Freddy ordered. A bored-looking college-aged girl in the Freddy's uniform opened the door to the ticket pulverizer. A game in a sealed transparent booth that would generate an absurd number of tickets. The ticket pulverizer usually costs about 4 tokens per person. But for birthday parties, the birthday kid and guests one visit to the pulverizer for free. Colton watched as though disinterest-seeming employee unlocked the booth, and the pipsqueaks poured in, giggling and yelling with excitement. "Now get ready to jump for tickets!" the recorded Freddy voice ordered. "And say hello to our friend, Coles, the birthday clown!" Colton didn't like clowns, and he especially didn't like this clown. Coils, the birthday clown animatronic, had wonky eyes, one that seemed to look straight ahead while the other veered down to the right, and a weird open-jawed grin that reminded Colton of those carnival games where you would shoot water in the clown's mouth. Its lanky body was dressed in a lemon and lime-colored striped costume. It was decorated with little jingly bells, which, Colton guessed, was so you could hear the clown before you saw it. It reminded him of the old story about the mice who wanted to hang a bell on a cat and use it as an early warning system. The clown's name came from its arms, which were yellow stretchy coils that reminded Colton of an old-fashioned handline phone at his grandmother's house. One of the clown's three-fingered, white-gloved hands ended several fans for tickets. "Now who's ready to jump for tickets?" the clown's high-pitched voice said again, turning up the drama. The squeakers went and said, "Prepare for the ticket pulverizer countdown! Now when I finish counting, everybody jump up and down as hard as you can! All together! Here we go! 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1! The clown's voice actor had really been trying to turn up the excitement for when he recorded this. "Now jump for tickets!" Laughing and squealing, the little kids leapt up and landed in unison. And as the parents watching had called, "Jump, jump, jump!" with each handing, and they pushed out of the platform on the floor in the booth, which caused tickets to fall from the ceiling. Delighted, they grabbed the tickets in their greedy little fists. Colton watched as a spectacle with a mixture of jealousy and disgust. All those tickets, and the little brats were just wasting them. You only got to keep what you caught, and the little kids were being stupid about it, grabbing over and over with their hands, dropping the tickets that they just caught in order to catch the new ones. They weren't smart enough to stuff the tickets in their pockets, down their shirts, inside their socks. If it were Colton, he'd just stick the tickets everywhere they'd fit, in his underwear, in his mouth. But even though the little kids annoyed him, they weren't really filled him with rage. The true object of his wrath was the ticket pulverizer itself. It was rigged to give an unfair advantage to the little kids, and he knew it. He had watched it dozens of times, maybe even 100, and the results were always the same. Whenever there were little kids inside it jumping and stomping, there were always a veritable blizzard of tickets. If Colton and other teams jumped for tickets, there were only a few flurries. It made no sense. Colton was no physicist, but he knew that heavier, stronger kids generated more force than shrimpy, weak ones. More force would equal more tickets. It was as simple as that. As Colton watched the pipsqueak party guests exit the ticket pulverizer, an idea began to form in his mind. If the ticket pulverizer had been rigged to favor little kids, couldn't it be rigged to favor big ones? Colton excelled in text classes in high school, and he liked how to fix things. He was good at the mechanical stuff. Now that the kids had cleared out of the ticket pulverizer, Colton approached it for a closer look. Getting inside the machine wouldn't be hard. If it was turned on, he would just have to feed it 4 tokens. He surveyed the booth's bright red platform. It was printed with pictures of children's-sized footprints. He looked at the screws that connected the platform and the bottom of the booth. Wouldn't tightening those screws make the platform harder to push down? He would need to give it some more thought. But he was confident that he would re-rig the pulverizer so it favored bigger visitors instead of the small ones. Justice would be served. And after only a dozen or so rounds of jump for tickets, Colton would be able to claim his new game console. "Hey, Colton!" Aiden's annoying, high-pitched voice interrupting Colton's thoughts. Colton looked down at his freckle-faced freak, holding out so many long ribbons of tickets he could hardly grasp them in his tiny fist. "Hey, Colton, look how many tickets I got," Aiden said. "I see," Colton hissed. "Now shoo." "Would you like half of my tickets?" Aiden asked, holding out a fistful. "I don't want your stupid tickets. I want you to go away." Colton was filled with white-hot rage. Why would this loathsome little creature have to pester him all the time? "Okay. Bye, Colton." Aiden ran off to join his repulsive little friends. With Aiden gone, Colton returned to his plan. It was a beautiful plan, except for one thing. Colton suddenly realized he couldn't dismantle the ticket pulverizer when Freddy's was open and full of employees, screaming kids and exhausted parents. If a worker caught him messing with one of the machines, the manager would be called and Colton would be thrown out or maybe even banned from returning. If the manager was in a really bad mood, she might even call the police. Getting in that kind of trouble was a risk he couldn't take. No, if Colton could fix the ticket pulverizer, he was going to have to do it when the place was empty. Colton realized that to get to what he wanted, he had only one choice. Late one night, while his mom was at work, he was going to have to break into Freddy Fazbear's. Uncle Mike slid out from under the car he was working on. "Hey, kiddo," he said, smiling up at his nephew. "Ready to do some apprentice work for me today?" "Sure," Colton said. He liked Uncle Mike's repair shop. It smelled of grease and rubber, tools lying around, and the endless parade of cars to work on. He liked his bearded, paunchy uncle, too. If Colton continued to do one of his technical classes at school and apprentice for Uncle Mike a couple of afternoons a week, Mike had promised Colton he could have a job at the shop as soon as he graduated high school. Mike wiped his hands on grease-stained rag and nodded in the direction of the blue SUV. "Rear passenger tire on that needs changing. I've already got out the new tire and the tools you need. You know what you're doing, right?" Sure, Colton had liked Uncle Mike and gave him credit for knowing some things. Colton had changed a lot of tires, mostly in Mike's shop, but once on the side of the interstate when his mom's car had blown out. Well, his mom had made a big deal about that, telling everybody she knew how he saved the day. Colton worked efficiently at changing the tire. He felt almost satisfied when he was working with his hands. Writing papers or school made him stressed out and frustrated, both when he had to write a paper and when he graded paper with a C on it, if he was lucky. But he knew he was an A-plus student when it came to fixing things. "Looks good, man," Uncle Mike said, surveying Colton's work. "Once I put in a new timing belt on this one over here, it needs an oil change. Think you're up for that?" Colton smiled and nodded. He was good at oil changes, too. "You want to watch me change the timing belt so you know how to do it?" "Sure." Colton followed his uncle to the car. Once he had watched and learned, he got up his courage to ask Mike the question he'd been wanting to ask him since he came to the shop. "Hey, Uncle Mike, I was wondering, can I borrow a few tools over the weekend? I got a project I'm working on at home." Mike grinned. "You know me and tools, kid. I've got extras of everything. And when it comes to tools, I'm like some women are with shoes. Can't get enough of them." Colton grinned back. "Yeah, but you don't ask to borrow somebody's shoes. That would be weird." "True." Uncle Mike nodded in the direction of the largest tool chest sitting against the wall. "You're welcome to borrow anything in there. Keep them for longer than the weekend if you need to. I know you'll take good care of them." "Thanks, Uncle Mike." Colton felt a little guilty for not being honest about what he was going to use the tools, but not so guilty that he wasn't going to take what he needed. After Colton finished the oil change and drank the soda that Uncle Mike brought him, he opened his chest to survey the tools. What tools would he need to access the inner workings of the ticket pulverizer? He might be of screws that he would need to remove, so he grabbed a couple of different kinds of screwdrivers. A wrench seemed to be might helpful, and maybe a crowbar in case he needed to pry the platform of the machine's floor. He needed to keep his tool kit pretty light, though if he was going to be sneaking into the place, he would be slowed down by carrying a lot of heavy equipment. He needed to be swift and stealthy, like a ninja. Well, that was really something. This story, or this book, like I said before, is really, more of a Fnaf book than anything else. I still am disappointed in the thumbnail for this book, though, because there's no puppets. So the puppet carver just doesn't make any sense. Anyways, yeah, what does make sense is that today we read pages. I pray to God that this works. Don't ask me why it's black. I really don't know. 63 to 80. Next time we will be reading... Next time we will be reading... Sorry, like I said, it's been a second. 81 to 10. 10? Well, no. 81 to... Hold on. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. 81 to 100. So, yeah. Hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.